Are you struggling to gain confidence in business? Are you struggling to excel as a leader in your current role? Well, I'm Cartwright Morris. I'm the host of the Men Are Forged podcast, and I too have struggled with these two things. How to gain confidence in our life and business, and then how do we then become the leader that we know we can be? Through this podcast, I will interview people as well as answer some cultural facts on how do we actually gain confidence, move past these constant stumbling blocks and insecurities, and address the questions that we're all asking. So if this is your first time listening to the podcast, I recommend you go to menareforged.com to find out more. Now, today's interview. Welcome in the Men Are Forged podcast. I'm excited to have John Monte today. John's coming from Seattle, Washington, a beautiful part of the country. Gotten to go there a couple times and loved it every time. John and his wife, Sherry, are part of Elegant Simplicity, which I'm really excited it's interesting, those two words together, what that means, and hearing that from him. But John, it's great to have you in today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. Super excited to be here and just kind of, share as much as I can.
Absolutely. So John, I love unpacking people's story. So I did see something in your bio about you used to be a college football coach. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so really, I'd love to hear what got you into that initially, and are you still got a team that you're keeping tabs on?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, man, I think like a lot of us, we all kind of have our first love, and mine was a bonding moment and an opportunity with my dad. So my dad grew up in South Philadelphia. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and from 4 or 5, he was taking me to Eagles games, and I was getting to watch all the greats. And there was a pageantry. There was just a fandom. Philadelphia's got this blue collar feel to it, and so they often Philadelphia fans often get the wrath of the rest of the nation. But for me, it was like I was in awe of like how a city could be so unified with a team, right? And a team could embody the same values and principles as that blue collar city. Right. And so just as a little kid, I was just infatuated by this. And so, played sports, played football, played baseball, but really it was football that I found opportunities to grow in and become a leader. And somewhere along the lines after college, I started helping out at a junior college coaching football, and had always kind of kept that as a side of me. I for whatever reason, I had always kept business and academics separate from athletics, and probably my mom speaking to me about getting good grades as the opportunity to play to be in athletics. And so from a really early age, I was connected to football, and it was always the thing that I just kind of fell in love with. And when I got out of college, I had a master's in coaching, and I was like, what am I going to do now? Like, I don't know. I didn't know if I was getting a coaching degree to be a college football coach, or if I was getting coaching to be a high school athletic administrator, or if I was getting a degree in a master's in coaching to be a good leader, right? I wasn't really sure. I just knew that I was called and felt this draw to it. And so I started helping out at this junior college, and it kind of grew my knowledge and my experience. And I think also just my very innate leadership of accountability, and willing to own what is mine, and to also expect of others a same level of accountability. That really kind of separated myself in my early 20s. So I was an assistant, then I became a receiver coach, then I became an offensive coordinator at junior college. And then I jumped up to the Division II level, and was an assistant receiver coach at Central Washington. And then I was the receiver coach at Army West Point. So that was really, really, again, leadership and football and these values all kind of my life always seemed to be kind of converging with these two things. So I'm a diehard Eagles fan. The second part of the question was you keep tabs. I'm still heartbroken over the Super Bowl. So at the time of this recording,
but it's a good day to be an Eagles fan. I mean, y'all got some good times right now.
It's amazing. It's amazing because the group is individuals, leadership, right? And collectively built around core values. Coach Sirianni talks a lot about it.
Yeah.
Jalen talks a lot about it. But all the leaders in that locker room, they're very, very, very built around. There's an older generation and a younger generation that are unified by those values. And so that's really what I think is special to watch as an Eagles fan. So.
So this isn't, I mean, there's a lot of questions, man. I'm really curious about your time in Army, so we talked about, before we hit record, just about building organizations. And you talk about like having the older and younger, that I've found that the best football teams are ones that are self-police. Did you find that in coaching where your better teams that you were coaching kind of had that similar part of the culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a kind of, I always go back to this. So we're at practice at West Point. We're at the end of a live scrimmage. Things are kind of getting a little chippy, and at West Point, there's a strong moral compass, as we would expect. But things still get chippy as football, right? And so things happen, and a receiver peel back blocks on a defensive back and decleats him. And, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't spiteful, knowing the human being, it was just football. You just saw it, boom, and reacted. And both sides rushed the field. Now there's no fist fighting, but there's animosity, right? Yeah. There's like, hey man, we're this friendly fire. It's not okay. And, we separate offense and defense, and we break into positions. And I'm walking back to my position now, knowing that my player, one of my guys, has instigated this uproar, right? And I'm relatively new at this point, right? So I'm not new to football, but I'm new to the United States Military Academy, right? And I'm walking back and I'm thinking to myself, all right, how do I approach this, right? Like, how am I coming in? I'm not coming in hot, or am I coming in kind of cool and we asking questions? Where are we going, right? And I get to my group of 12, and they had already policed it. They had already figured it out. They had already totally taken the air out of the space. I mean, it was a vacuum. It was just gone, and it was nothing, right? And, player owns right up to it. It's like, hey, man, that was a football play. I didn't mean to do that, right? We owned up to it right away. Before we even exit the field, it was squashed. It was completely gone from the whole team, right? From the whole team. And in poor organizations without that ability, that code, it breaks and it becomes cancer, and it becomes, this happened. Now let's go to the next level on the other side. Then it's another side, right? And we're in the depth of what was wrong continues to get higher in its stakes. And that's not the way that the best organizations operate. The best organizations can air that laundry, get rid of it, and then really move beyond it, right? And grow from it.
Yeah, that they don't walk around the conflict. They actually embrace it and actually realize it's a good thing for them to move forward.
It was completely gone within less than 5 minutes. It had completely evaporated. Right now, this was at the military academy. Plebes are called freshmen are called plebes, and firsties are seniors. And this was a firstie, a senior, who had completely removed it, right, from the conflict, from our position group with a plebe, right? Yeah. And so here we are. It's like, we're just self-regulating, right? That accountability and the duty to always be leading is very, very present in great organizations.
Yeah.
I think it's present not just in great organizations. I think it's present in great families. Yeah. I think it's present in great relationships, right? So yeah, it's not just organizations or teams.
100%. Yeah, I heard somebody say the best mom he's ever seen is a mom with 7 kids because they all start just raising each other.
It's true. It's true, man.
Yeah.
I mean, mom does one thing, right? And then it continues on there.
Yeah. So what else? What other leadership qualities or things that you saw? Because I'm sitting there when you say West Point, I thought of a friend of mine did like a leadership program for civilians up there and all the lessons he learned. So I'm just curious, when you kind of go into the coaching ranks and junior college, Division II, and then you go to West Point, what were some of the maybe differentiating leadership things that you saw they did that you didn't see before?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. My rise to West Point, or my journey, I won't even call it a rise. My journey to West Point as a football coach was met with a lot of poor examples of what it looks like. And that doesn't mean that the places that I coached were poor in their leadership. There was a lot of really good leaders, but there's examples inside of every single institution and examples inside of our own lives where we're just not the best. We're just not always at our peak. And it's not the event or the action, but the reaction that changes it. And I think at West Point, what separates that time period in my coaching career is that the communication is what was heard, not what was spoken, right? And so it's our interpretation of what is being said, not necessarily what is being said, right? It's like, how do we individually and then collectively as a group interpret that and move forward? Wow. And I think that that's really, really evident there. It was certainly evident. It's not an imprint that I made upon my group. It's an imprint that my group at West Point and that being around that culture made upon me, right? That's the United States Military Academy. It's just, it's a level of elitism, right? And it's just, just operates on a different level.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. So I'm really getting excited to hear how you pivoted to what you're doing now, but I kind of want to stay here in the career path, because I feel like my audience, is these, men that are trying to grow in their career and understand, what is the ideal career path? How do you define success? So, what are some of the things? I mean, coaching in itself, college football coaching is such a niche and a different animal than most careers, but moving from place to place, what were some of the things that you look back on that you wish you'd done differently, but also that you were like really thankful for?
Well, I mean, I think when we're trying to, like speaking specifically to your audience of like trying to identify that career path, or potentially even being introspective in their own chosen career path of like, is this right? Should I continue? Right. I think we are all naturally at this place in the world where especially when we reach a level of success, and maybe we've been down that road where we're trying to identify is like, is this it? Do I continue? Right. And so for me, it was always that I'm not perfect. Right. And that was a huge self-limiting belief that I had, was that like, I needed to be perfect. I always had to, even when I was telling you about that story, right? What am I going to say? Am I coming in hot, or am I coming in calm and cool and asking questions? Because I was always so introspective. Right. And it wasn't that I had to be perfect. It's that I cared so much that I wanted to always be providing something that was of incredible value. And you know what? Showing up and being present and being accountable is an immense value. And so I think as I think about even my time coaching football, it was like this innate desire drove me, this perfectionism, it drove me to be really, really good. It drove me to care, right? And the moment that I recognized it as an asset of mine and not a limiting belief, I could ignite that growth, right? If I could look at perfectionism and say, wow, like, look at what it does for me. Look at this asset, right? I mean, in finance, you talk about asset and liabilities. Like, perfectionism can be an asset if you use it for you, right? And I'm not a perfectionist expert, but this is like at the core, man, that's what drove me, is like I cared so much, right? I wanted so much significance, not just success. I wanted to impact people at their core. And that drove me to focus on story. That drove me to focus on character. That made me focus on values and codes of honor and things that were really, really innate to me as a coach, right? Mm-hmm. And how would they parlay into my personal life or my professional life with other colleagues, right? So I don't know if that answers necessarily your question. Like, I think perfectionism, like for me, it was identifying that perfectionism wasn't a limiting belief, right? It was that, hey, I could use this as an asset for growth.
Absolutely. Like, I think you said it well with, even hitting on character and story. I'm like, this is something I try to tell my clients, just like, so how did you evaluate those things, that I am the character that's driving my own story? And actually, like, when we love a good story, we love a good movie, I love a good book, but yet we don't want that for our own life. We don't want the up and down. We don't want the character developing portions of our life.
None.
We want
we want the peak. We want the peak, right? When the resolution is clear and on calm waters, right? We want the last 3 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you're a Philly guy. Like, we want the Rocky, the Rocky story inspires us.
Yeah.
At the same time.
They play it before every game in Philadelphia. Rocky comes on, the theme song, right? Here it comes. They're playing it on the Jumbotron, right? Yeah. It embodies the values, right? And I think that, remember early in the conversation, I was saying that the city of Philadelphia and the team are so closely connected, right? Why do they play that? Well, they play that, in my perspective, I've been, a fan for nearly 30 years. My perspective is they play that because they know it's tapping into something that's true for their fans and for their team, right? It's tapping into something. When you hear those bells, right? The Rocky, I get shivers right now because that's the mark of their city, right? And I think for us, you're right. We don't necessarily want the trials. We don't want the tribulation. We don't want the struggle. But it's the reaction to the struggle that changes our future. It could be reflective. Your reaction can be to be introspective and learn from it, right? But it's your reaction. It's how you move forward after the struggle, whatever it might be. It could be a small struggle or it could be a big struggle. But it's that growth. That's the growth. That's the process. That's where you see all the hard work paying off is in the reaction to it, because we can be hit with a roadblock. We can be hit with anything that's an obstacle, a challenge, anything. And if we choose to retreat, we never get that. We never got that growth. We never got through it. Right. And I'm a believer. So I believe that God is always giving you these tests. And if you retreat, he's just going to find another way to give you the test, because he knows you're going to become that person. Right.
Yeah.
On the other side of it, he knows what you're going to become. So he's just going to have to keep presenting you with that test. So I think it's a lot about the reaction to the obstacle or to the challenge. And that for me was looking at the perfectionism of like, why do I care so much? Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I want significance. Success is great. I want significance. I want real impact. So I'm constantly, even though I'm not coaching, reaching out to the players and the people that I was surrounded by during my coaching time, because I want to make sure that they understand and they know that significance mattered, right? They know that I'm still there.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, something that just you saying that, as a believer myself, I'm like, you either you humble yourself or God humbles you. Like, that's what's going to happen. And I think you yourself use that but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, because those humbling moments allow us to evaluate and actually look at the problem and be like, man, there's something more that's going on that's actually redemptive. Like you said, like, I'm wanting more significance and impact in these men's lives.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
Well, that's why you're here, right? That's why you got the podcast. That's why you got coaching, right? That's why you got masterminds, because like you really care about that. It's important.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thrive Marriage Lab. If you want your marriage to thrive, this is a great opportunity to you, because strong marriages are the bedrock of strong churches, organization, families, and community. This is a 12-month pathway for any of you that are looking to really have weekly engagement with experienced marriage counselors. Not just one, but many. So go to restory.life/thrive to get on the waiting list for this great program that starts in April. That's restory.life/thrive. And make sure you put the word Forge in the promo code to receive a discount on your monthly fee. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, man. So so we're kind of gotten this point. I mean, speaking of the humbling, tough moments, and I don't know if this was for you or it was an epiphany or just a revelation that you had. What led to all right, you built this career in coaching and then you really experienced, a height at, being at West Point. And what changed for you to be now in, have a business with your wife and interior design and home organization and all that?
I mean, how do you go from the alpha male sport of football, like literally the gridiron, to working in people's homes? It's a transition that I reflect upon. Really, it came down to we had a son, and I no longer wanted to go and coach and be away from my son for that length of time that I was going to take and to commit. When you're a football coach, you're all in. There's no other option. Yeah. And I don't mean that football coaches can't have families. I just mean that for me, being a dad was being present. And I was really after how present was I going to be? And my wife and I, we have our own unique family building journey that we don't have to go into, but it came down to wanting to make sure that, that my son knew that he was important to me and that I was going to be available to him. And I was going to be there to teach him. And so I made a decision. My wife and I had our business going in the background was in the background for me while I was coaching, right?
Yeah.
Coaching was first. But we had our business going and then our son was born and I held him, and I just realized I had an opportunity to go to Princeton and just realized that it wasn't something that I wanted to do anymore. I love to coach. I love ball. It's amazing. There's nothing like being in that kind of environment. But for me, it was a value system of what kind of dad was I going to be. I was mentored by Dennis Green. He was the head coach at Stanford. He was the head coach at Northwestern, obviously the head coach at the Minnesota Vikings and the Arizona Cardinals. Drafted the greats, Randy Moss, Larry Fitzgerald, right? So I was mentored by him, and he used to always say to me, John, why do you want to be a football coach? You're too smart. You're too smart to be a football coach, right? And I always think, it's flattering, right? He knows what kind of grind it is. But through that, I learned a lot about the time away from his own family and the sacrifices that he had to make. And when he passed away, that was kind of the turning point for me, holding my son and realizing that, wow, that time is short and it could be short-lived. And what do I want to do? I want to be present. So as a father, I chose being present over kind of a career path, and building our own business now has been a great blend of that opportunity. I mean, there's definitely been, as we were speaking about, some challenging times with time management per se, but but that's all, I think Rory Vaden says it, do things today to save time tomorrow. Right. And so there's these windows, right. These seasons of intense work and then seasons of harvest. So,
right.
So that's kind of how I made the transition. It was like something that was happening for Sherry and I in the background. And then I became a father, and my life and my perspective changed quite a bit. And our business had always been about creating home around your values. We just never said it like that. We just never said, that the things that we curate for you, and curate's a fancy word for saying, select for you on your behalf, right? should come from your actual values as a person and as a family, right? We shouldn't just be making aesthetic decisions for that sake. So that's kind of where we started to really realize that, wow, home was so much bigger than a 4-letter word. It was a love investment, right? It was like, I don't want to coach anymore because I don't want to be separated from my family for those time periods. And wow, what if we brought that into the home? What if we brought that love investment back into the home? So, yeah.
Man, that's so cool. And it from the little I know, it just sounds like you did put down like a career, even a dream that you had to support your wife's dream.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. It's like, I think at that point it became our dream, right? It became, and I just had this revelation, not long ago, but like for a very long time after that transition, I reserved my coach Monte, right? That fire, that like hype, that, I'm a very energetic coach. I like to fly around, I like to have fun. I encourage my players, my group, my position group, or if I'm leading the offense, I encourage them to fly around and have a good energy that they bring to practice, not this subdued. And for a long time, I limited that in our business. And just recently, I've started to realize, as we were talking about team building and culture, and I started to realize, wow, that energy that I have as a coach has to be present in our business, right? It has to be present in order for our business to grow and to scale. As a professional, I can't withhold that. That's a part of me. That energy that I bring to the field is the same energy I have to bring to our business. And it's a transition, but it gets people going, right? I think there's this idea that we're all born with the same amount of life force particles, right? And this is very sciencey, so bear with me if you're not a science guy, but we're all born with these life force particles, and over course of time, we hear things or we witness things or we experience things that control those life force particles. They stop them from being free. And what we really have to do is open ourselves up to realize that, like, hey, if you're a football coach, but you're in corporate America, you can bring that same energy. You can separate you. It will give you a distinguishing asset in your character that people will be magnetic to you. They'll want to be around you because your energy is so polarizing. The platform is football or the platform is sales and marketing, right? It's neither here nor there.
Right. Man, that's cool. Yeah. John, I mean, I'm really fascinated because there's something, especially this day and age when everybody is working more from home, more virtual jobs are being created, that how do you and your wife, Sherry, really create a unique space that's specific to somebody's personality? Because y'all talk about really the introspective part of your work that's really just unique. That's not just simply like, hey, we're throwing some couches and some paintings on the wall.
No, it's true. So there's two things here. So one, we say that design is inspiration, not replication. The idea here is that, like, we're not trying to reproduce what you see on Instagram, or we're not trying to recreate what you see on Pinterest, or, a lot of times we get sidetracked by all of the way these other spaces look, and we're not actually focused on how we want our home to look and feel, right? How we need it to function for our life, and what kind of environment do we want to create? A lot of times we often want, the things that are very surface level. We want a place that's comfortable. We want a place that's nice. We want a place that's beautiful, right? Okay, that's great. Those are good places to start, but more deeply, right? If we're in a home office and you're a remote worker, that space, it's got to be maximized for productivity. It's got to be maximized for empowering, for inspiring, for producing, for efficiency, right? And that's really where we come at it, where we take our clients through 3 phases. And you could do this. We do this for design, but you can do this for your life. We say first phase is you're going to assess. You're going to assess what you want. You're going to assess what you need, right? And so you're thinking specifically we're talking about homes. So let's just kind of put it in application. It's like, okay, if we are talking about a home office, right? It's like, okay, well, do I need a big desk? Do I need a standing desk? Do I need a desk where I sit?
Yeah.
Do I need both? Do I need a place where I can sit and stand, right? Do I need studio lighting? Do I need a microphone? Do I need clean surface areas? Do I need compartmentalized, organizers, right? What do I need, right, around that space? And some of these things you can see are very functional driven, and other things then become the aesthetic part of it. It's like, how do I want this place to feel? Do I want it to be bright, right? Do I want it to be dark and moody, right? Do I want it to be inspiring? Do I want it to be casual and comfortable, right? It's like, what do we want? So you're assessing that space, and then you could assess your life too, very much like I did when we had my son, our son. I was assessing what I wanted my future to look like. What did I want? What did I want my family life to look like? What did I want my son to look like, about our relationship? What I wanted him to reflect back on. I wanted him to say, Dad was there. Dad was there, man. He was always there, always showed up, right? That's what I wanted. And so that for me was very easy. It wasn't jumping on Sherry's dream. It was redefining my dream, right?
How about that?
Awesome, right? It's like, this is cool. Yeah. And so then you're going to, after your assessment, then we call it ACT, assess, curate, and transform. The next step is you're going to curate. Now you got to do the work, right? Everybody wants to know the transformation. Everybody wants, like we could say you jump to the end of the movie because you want to know how it ends, right? Especially if it's 7 movies, you're like, hey, can I just know like that, what happens, right?
Right.
Or you jump to the end of the novel, right? So everybody wants the transformation. They all want it to be done just like that, especially in our homes. We're like, I don't want to go through a remodel. I don't want to do this new build, right? I don't want to do this long transformational process. But the reality is to create a space that's truly in a life that's truly unique to you, that's everything that you need, you have to do the work. So you have to assess, and then you begin to do the curation. Now you start to think about, what are the things that I want to go find? What are the things that I need to learn? What are the skills that I need to acquire to go to the next level? So for your audience, if we were talking about life, it would be, hey, if I want a promotion, what's that skill that's going to get me to that promotion? Right? What things do I need to do to move beyond where I am right now? If I'm stuck, if I'm in an obstacle, if I've got a challenge, a roadblock right in front of me, how do I break through that? Does it look like joining a mastermind? Does it look like joining a coaching program? Does it look like reading a book, right? A self-help book? Does it look like, spending more time away from the screen? It's assessing and curating what those things are. And then you got to go do them. You actually have to go do them. You can't read the Cliff Notes. You got to read the book. Right? You can't skim through the teaching material. You got to invest and be in the material. You've got to embody that material to get the growth, to get the transformation, right? And the last phase is the transformation. Everybody wants the transformation. We all want that, right? And sometimes we get underway in the transformation and we're like, we talked about a little bit about retreating or going through. Sometimes we get to the transformation, we're like, is this house ever going to look like a house again? Because right now there's ramboard everywhere. There's paint masking all over the place. Like, my furniture's in a totally different location. Like, what does this transformation look like? Sometimes we get in the middle and we get in the weeds of personal or self-help transformation. And we're like, this is uncomfortable, right? This is not what I want. Like, I'd just rather retreat back. But the pain of being where you were has to be greater for you to go, for you to push through it. You have to feel a greater sense of pain or a greater sense of friction or discomfort to get yourself through it. You have to want it more. So that's the process. Assess, curate, transform. I think it applies to not just home, but it applies to life.
Yeah. That you have to take even the good ideas and actually act on them. They're not, they can't just stay nice little ideas that you can't just clip little pictures out of the magazine, right?
Pinterest is great, but you got to stop there. You got to go beyond it, right?
Yeah.
It's a great place to start.
So in the process, where have you seen some of the bigger problems that your clients have in really going through y'all's process?
Yeah, I'd say that a lot of people, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a challenge that they have, that our clients have, but it's definitely a unique difference in the clients that we do work with. They are hungry and eager and ready to
Yeah.
do the work around their values, right? To identifying their core values of how we're going to build home, right? How are we going to
Yeah.
create space for you and your family? What actually matters to you? So we say home's everything you need and nothing more. How do we get to need? We got to
Yeah.
get to need, right? We got to get in the weeds of it and identify what need looks like for you. It could be minimalist for some people and it could be maximalist for another, right? It could be a tiny home. It could be a mansion, right? Need is unique to you. It depends on your desires, what you want, right?
Yeah.
And what you truly need in your life. And, so our clients are not often challenged by that process, but they're eager to jump in. Now that doesn't mean that it's
Yeah.
easy, right? I didn't say it was easy to do that work because it's not, right?
Yeah.
There's an eagerness, there's an urgency because there's something at stake for them. The
Yeah.
pain of where they were is no longer where they want to be, and so they're willing to go to that distance or willing to go to the end to break through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you're creating that space, I mean, when you create that space around values, everything is validated by it. You're like, oh, why that paint color? Well, because you said this and this. Why that sofa? Because
Yeah.
your family needs this, this, and this. This is how you use the space. Why that bookcase? Why that built-in? Why those hardwood floors? Right? Because this, and this. Now you have this foundation. And so you can imagine if you applied this to your life as a man, what this process of assess, curate, and transform of like how you could truly map your growth, because you can look at the transformation that you want to have, and then you can start with assessing how do I get there? What are the things that I need to do to get there?
Yeah. Man, John, there's something you've kind of explained it just then, but I am curious because I think there is people who probably hear this and be like, what does my values have to do with how my home is shaped? But I think what you're hitting on is really what, because I think everyone at the end of the day, like values can't just be values. They can't just be words on the wall, right?
Yeah.
They actually have to be evident in your life. And I think having the home is one big way to have that. But how are you making values be more evident in people's homes and their life, where people know, like, not just by what you say, but how you live your life, that these is what you hold true to.
Yeah. I mean, one of the ways that I think I think a lot of people can understand is if we say that sustainability is important to you, right? Sustainable practices, then we want to make sure that we're bringing things into your home that have a sustainability to them. They might not be the most sustainable, right? They might not be the highest level of sustainability, but if they have some level of sustainability to it, there's a great value. You said that the environmental practices and how we create a dining room table, or how a chair is created, or where it's created, is important to you. Same thing would be durability, right? We could talk about the hardness of the floors that we're selecting on your behalf, right? And why we would select, say, an epee wood, right? Or versus a traditional hardwood, right? And so there's all of these values that come out of our conversation and our work together that determine what we're actually selecting and curating on your behalf in your home. And the same exact thing that happened in your life. We can't, in a football, in an athletic department, we don't just put core values on the wall and just go, oh, there's grit. Oh, there's courage, right? Yeah. Oh, there's fundamentals, right? No, it's like, well, actually, we're really digging into them. We define them. Core values are defined, and then they're applied. right? They're defined and then they're applied. There's an application to a value system that you have to have. If you don't have it, then you basically have yourself a great sheet of paper with some kind words on them, right? I mean, it's true, right? We have to live by our value system, right? We both said we were believers. There's a value system that comes along with believing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, whether it's your life, career path, your family, or your home, we're identifying a value system and building and creating off of that foundation.
Yeah. And it sounds like y'all's process, you really get to instill that, because values become values when we choose them, when it's easy and when it's hard. Like,
yes.
So
yeah.
I imagine that curated phase that, when it's hard is really when you're like, hey, this is what you chose. This is what you said. We're using your words here.
Yeah. Absolutely. At 1000%. I mean, we could talk about like people who say they want an artistic home, like a home that they value the arts, right? Well, okay, well then we're not shopping for artwork that's, just everywhere. Shopping for one of a kind pieces, right? We're really thinking about where's the artist's mindset and emotion when they're creating this piece. What kind of environment are they in? What does that represent for you, right? What does it represent for them? What's the story behind the art, right? Because there's a whole set of, we're all human beings. We all have high intense emotions and we all have a great level of energy, and it's blending and finding that level, or finding that ground where they are all converging together, and that creates that space for you. So it's the curation phase is unique because our team does the work, right? But anybody could do the work. Anybody. Right. It's, do you have that foundation to build off of? Because I said this, this, and this, because I believe this, this, and this, now this is the right decision. Right? So
I mean, for my listeners who could be just driving home from work right now at the end of the day, and they got a few hours tonight, what's like maybe one or two things they could do to really implement their values in their home, or really just start organizing something that's more efficient and productive?
Yeah, I think it starts with, like, as we talked about, it starts with identifying what do you want? What do you want from home, right? Let's look at it and unpack it specifically about home. Well, what do you actually want from your home, right? Is this a dumping ground? Right? Is this a place where you just dump all your stuff? Is this a place where you just collect all these things that you don't ever use, or you don't ever showcase, or you don't tell the story behind, right? Because everything that we acquire, we have some level of connection to, right? And we say clutter connects us. Like, it just does. It doesn't matter what it is, right? The mechanics shop, right? Got a lot of clutter, right? Clutter connects us, right? Or the pantry that's overstuffed, like it just connects us. And so when we're able to evaluate what we want from our homes, right? And thinking long-term, like, how do we want to live here? What is like everyday life? Like the ultimate, take yourself on this journey of thinking about, like, what does life look like without all of this stuff, right? What do I want if I was to just remove everything from my home? And that's not to say that we would do that or you would do that. But if you were to have no strings attached, what would life look like every single day in that space? And it might be your office, right? Or it might be your living room. And then you start to create a foundation for, this is how life, or how I hope life will unfold in here, and how I want life to unfold in here. Maybe, for instance, a great example is, we don't watch a lot of TV, but we do make a point to watch, something together every night for 20 to 30 minutes, right? And so our family, we sit down together. That time's really important to us. So ensuring that in a living room, we have a place where we can all feel like we can connect and be comfortable and enjoy that space together. That's really important to our value of connection, right?
Yeah.
It's really, really important. So when you start to peel back the layers of like, home is not just this place where we just stuck a lot of stuff and we sleep and then we get up and we shower and we eat and we head out the door. But when we really start to think about, what does home look like and mean to you? Now you can start to think about, okay, how could our living room change? what would changing our living room look like? What would it feel like? Why would we want to
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
That's a great way. It's a great place to start. And then obviously we always say that organizing is the foundation to design. So if you're thinking about redesigning a space, whether it's like your kitchen or your bathroom or your bedroom or your living room, you're thinking about what will be functional, right? Do we need storage? Maybe we don't need DVD storage anymore because we're all streaming, right? It's like, but I know people who still have tons of DVDs and they don't watch them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like maybe that space can be used for something different
Yeah.
to maximize a different set of values, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's good. Now I'm like sitting here thinking, where do I have DVDs? Yeah. I mean, you grew up in the 90s. I mean, that was the thing. Like, you said DVDs and, VHSs all over the place.
It's true, man. It's true.
I'm sure you got some of those old VHSs of Reggie White and Randall Cunningham, right?
Hey, man, I'm not saying I don't want the NFL coming after me, but I was definitely I was definitely hitting the record button on the VHS as a kid so I could watch Barry Sanders and watch the greats. Yeah, I just love to pour into that. And that was really fun as a kid growing up.
Yeah, I bet, man. Well, John, I appreciate you coming on. I'd love for you just to, I'm going to have a link in the bio for the gift that you're giving to my audience today. So I'd love for you to explain a little bit more of that, but also just where people can connect with you.
Yeah. So two things. Well, one, thanks for having me. It was awesome. I love the conversation. I think that the opportunity where home and life really converge, specifically for your audience, when you're starting to think about how your career path maybe is changing or has changed or is evolving, how your life is evolving, what that looks like. I think that we all feel this sense. I call it seasons of life. And that's one season, right? And being introspective is a great place to be. And that's what Elegant Simplicity does so well. We just happen to do it in the envelope of home. So Elegant Simplicity, it's at Elegant Simplicity Interiors on Instagram, at elegantsi.com is our website. And then we've got a free 4-day video course, which is 4 days to a more beautiful and functional home. And that's really taking you through the very foundational aspects of how you go about creating both a beautiful and functional space. We want that transformation, but there's work that we have to do to get there. So,
man, that was great, John. I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a blast talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Mentor Forge podcast. If you're a business owner looking to find a group of other business owners to find solutions, to grow together, to find out more about how it looks to be faith-based within your leadership role, please go to mentorforge.com, or you can go to mentorforge.com/leaders to find out more information about my leadership cohort and how I'm helping business owners and men lead well.